The fire had burned down to almost nothing, and the girl was afraid to leave the babies long enough to fetch more wood. Her name was Hattie Pell, and she was 11 years and 4 months old, though she had stopped counting the months somewhere around the 3rd day. She sat on the dirt floor of the one-room cabin with her back against the cold iron of the stove, and in her lap she held 2 newborns who weighed almost nothing at all. The bigger one, the boy, was sleeping. The smaller one, the girl, was making a sound that wasn't quite crying, a thin reed of breath that came and went the way wind comes and goes under a door. Hattie had named them in her head, though she hadn't said the names aloud yet, because saying them felt like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. The boy was Asa, because that had been her grandfather's name. The girl was Mercy, because Hattie had needed a word that sounded like a prayer. Their mother had been dead for 6 days. Their father had been gone for 6 days. Outside, the snow had been falling since dawn, and the wind had picked up the kind of edge that meant the storm hadn't finished what it had come to do. Hattie looked at the stove. She looked at the wood box. There were 4 pieces left. She had been telling herself for 2 hours that 4 pieces was enough, that her papa would be back before she had to choose between fire and food, between fire and the babies, between fire and going out there herself. He was not coming back. She had known it since yesterday morning, though she had not yet said the words even silently. 6 days was too long. Twin Falls was 9 miles down the valley, and even in heavy snow a man on a good horse made the trip in 4 hours. Her papa had gone for the doctor and for help and for a wet nurse if one could be found, and he had said he would be back by nightfall. He had not come back by nightfall. He had not come back the next day or the next. Hattie shifted Mercy in her arms and felt how light the baby was, lighter than yesterday. The crock of cow's milk her papa had drawn before he left was nearly empty, and what was left had gone thin and sour at the bottom, and the babies had stopped taking it the way they had at first. She had been wetting a corner of clean rag and squeezing drops into Mercy's mouth. But Mercy had begun turning her face away, which was a thing Hattie did not have a name for but understood as bad. She closed her eyes. Nobody came back for me, she thought, not as self-pity, as fact. The way a person notes that the river has frozen, or that the corn did not come up. Nobody came back. I'm what's left. She would not let herself cry because crying took warmth, and she had none to spare. It was the smoke that made the man on the road stop. His name was Silas Brennan, and he was 43 years old, and he had been hauling freight between Bannock and the lower valley for 11 winters. He knew this stretch of road the way a man knows the lines on his own hand. He knew which cabins were lived in and which had been abandoned to the weather, and he knew that the Pell place, that small cabin set back from the road, behind the snake rail fence, had no business showing smoke this time of year. Not the kind of smoke it was showing anyway. Thin smoke, reluctant smoke, the smoke of a fire that was almost out. Silas pulled his mules to a halt and sat on the wagon seat for a long moment, looking down the slope at the cabin through the falling snow. He had known Tom Pell to nod to, a serious young man with a young wife who'd been carrying heavy in the autumn. Silas had passed them in town in October and tipped his hat to the woman, and she had smiled at him the way women smile when their happiness is so close to the surface they can't hide it. He had not seen Tom Pell since. Silas climbed down from the wagon. He was a tall man, lean through the shoulders, with a beard gone mostly gray and eyes the color of weak tea. He moved the way men move when they have been alone with their thoughts for a long time, without hurry, without waste. He tied the mules to the fence rail and walked through knee-deep snow toward the cabin door. He knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder, and called out, "Tom Pell? It's Silas Brennan, the freighter. Saw your smoke." For a long moment there was no answer. Then a voice, small, careful, not afraid exactly, but holding fear the way a cup holds water, said, "My papa's not here." Silas put his hand flat against the door. "Who's inside?" "Then." "Just me and the babies." Silas closed his eyes for one breath, then he opened them. "Child," he said, "I'm going to open this door. I'm not going to come in past the doorway unless you say. I just need to see you're all right. Is that all right with you? A pause. Yes, sir. He lifted the latch. The cold inside the cabin was almost the same as the cold outside, and that fact told Silas Brennan everything he needed to know about how long the fire had been failing. The girl sat against the stove with 2 infants in her arms. Her hair was the color of winter wheat, and it had not been combed in days. There was a smudge of soot on her cheekbone shaped like a thumbprint. Her eyes were the kind of blue that looks gray in low light, and they were fixed on him with the steady attention of a creature that had decided not to run because running would cost too much. "Where's your mother?" Silas asked, though he already knew. The girl looked toward the back of the cabin. There was a curtain pulled across what must have been the bed. "She didn't live through it," Hattie said. "The babies came too fast and there was too much blood. Papa rode for the doctor." "When?" "6 days ago." Silas Brennan was a man who had buried a wife and a daughter both in the same season, 11 years gone now, and he had thought he was past the place where news could strike him. He found he was not. Something in his chest, something he had carefully sealed, gave a small turn under his ribs. He took off his hat. "What's your name?" "Hattie." "Hattie, I'm Silas. I'm going to come inside now and build that fire up. Then I'm going to look at those babies. I won't touch you, and I won't touch them without your say. All right?" Hattie looked at him for a long moment. He let her look. He had learned, with skittish horses and skittish dogs, and once with a skittish child long ago, that the looking was how trust began. You did not earn it by speaking. You earned it by being seen and not flinching. "All right," Hattie said. He built the fire first because the fire was the thing keeping all 3 of them alive. And a man does the most important thing first, or he is no kind of man at all. He went outside and brought in an armful of wood from the lean-to, which was nearly empty. Tom Pell had not laid in enough for a long absence, and he stoked the stove until the iron began to tick and warm. Then he set water to boil. Then he turned to Hattie. "May I see the little ones?" She loosened her arms and showed him. The boy was small, but he was breathing well, and his color was the color of a baby that had decided to stay. The girl was another matter. Silas had midwifed enough calves and foals, and once in a hard winter on a homestead far from anywhere, a human child, to know what he was looking at. The girl was failing. Not yet failed, there was still time, but the line was there and she was on the wrong side of it. "How long since she ate?" "She won't take the milk anymore. The cow milk." "You been giving them cow's milk?" "There wasn't anything else. Papa drew it before he left, and I've been warming it on the stove." Silas nodded slowly. He did not tell her that newborn babies and cow's milk were a poor match, that without a wet nurse or proper preparation a baby this small could starve on a full belly. There was no use telling her. She had done the best a child could do, which was a great deal more than most. "You did right," he said. "You kept them warm and you kept trying. That's what a body does." Hattie's mouth pulled tight at the corner. She did not cry. He saw the effort it took her not to. "I have to ask you something hard. Hattie, your mother, is she still back there?" "Yes, sir. I couldn't. The ground's too hard, and I couldn't leave the babies long enough." "All right. We'll see to her proper, in time. But the living come first. You understand?" "Yes, sir. I'm going to take you and the babies into town. Twin Falls, if the road's clear. There's a woman there I know, Eliza Day, the blacksmith's wife, who had a baby herself in September. She'll have milk to spare, and she's the kind of woman who'd give it. Can you ride in the wagon under the canvas?" Hattie looked down at Mercy. "She's too small to go out in the cold," she whispered. "I know it. I'll wrap her against my coat. My body'll keep her warm till we get there. You'll hold the boy under the blankets in the wagon bed. I have buffalo robes. It'll be warm as a bed in there." She looked up at him. "How do I know you'll come back? If you take her ahead and leave us, how do I know?" Silas Brennan went very still. He understood in that question the whole shape of what had been done to this child. Not by her father. He did not yet know what had befallen Tom Pell and would not judge a dead man before the evidence was in, but by the simple, cruel arithmetic of the world. She had been left. She had been left for 6 days with 2 newborns and a dead mother behind a curtain. And somewhere in those 6 days she had stopped being a child who expected adults to come back. He crouched down so his eyes were level with hers. "Hattie, listen to me. I'm not going to leave any of you. We go together or we don't go. If we can't all go, I stay here and we figure it some other way. You have my word on that, and my word is the only thing I own clear." Hattie looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded, one small nod, and handed him the smaller baby. The road into Twin Falls had been broken by a freight team earlier in the day, which was a small mercy, and Silas accepted it as such. He drove the mules at a steady walk because anything more would have jostled the babies, and he sang under his breath as he drove, an old song his mother had sung, something with no particular meaning, the kind of sound that tells an infant the world is still going on. Inside his coat, against the wool of his shirt, Mercy lay quiet and small as a kitten. He could feel her breathing. He counted her breaths every minute the way a man counts coins in a thin year. Under the canvas, on the buffalo robes, Hattie lay with Asa tucked against her chest. She did not sleep. He glanced back twice and saw her open eyes both times, fixed on the patch of gray sky visible at the wagon's tail. The light was failing when they came down the long slope into Twin Falls. The town was smaller than its name suggested. One street, a church, a smithy, a doctor's shingle, a general store with a lamp already lit in the front window. Silas drove straight to the smithy. Eliza Day was a stout woman with red hands and a face that had been used to weather and to kindness in roughly equal measure. She opened her door, saw what Silas was carrying, and said only, "Bring them in, both of them, all of them, now." She had Mercy at her breast within 4 minutes of the wagon stopping. The baby would not take at first. Eliza was patient. She had nursed 3 of her own and had buried one between, and she knew the particular stubbornness of a baby who had decided the world wasn't worth the effort. She spoke to Mercy in a low, steady voice. "Come on, little one, come on, here it is. Here's what you've been waiting for." And at last, on perhaps the 8th try, Mercy latched. Hattie watched from a chair by the fire with Asa in her arms. She had not let go of him since they came inside. When Mercy began to suck, really suck in the way a baby does when it has chosen to live, Hattie's face did something complicated. The muscles around her mouth moved. Her eyes closed and opened. She did not smile, and she did not weep. She did something more honest than either. She let out one long breath that she had been holding for 6 days, and her shoulders came down half an inch, and she said very quietly to no one in particular, "Oh." That was all. But Silas Brennan, watching from the doorway with his hat in his hands, felt that one syllable land somewhere very deep, in a place he had thought was sealed up for good. The story of what had happened to Tom Pell came in pieces over the next 2 days, the way such stories do in small towns. Dr. Halloran in Twin Falls had not seen Tom Pell. Nobody at the livery had seen him stable a horse, but Asher Coombs, who ran the trading post out at the crossroads 12 miles east, had seen a man matching the description. Tall, dark coat, frantic, 6 days back. The man had bought laudanum and bandages and asked the road to Bannock, where the surgeon was, and had ridden out in worsening weather. He had not made Bannock. A trapper named Petey Lansford had found the horse 3 days later, standing patient in the lee of a rock outcrop above the Hollow Creek crossing. The horse had been saddled. The saddle had been empty. The creek that week had been running high and fast with the early thaw before the storm closed it back down. Tom Pell had drowned, most likely, trying to ford water that should not have been forded. On his way to fetch help, his wife was already past needing. Silas heard all of this in the back room of the general store on a Tuesday afternoon, with his hat on his knee, and he sat with it for a long time before he stood up. He did not tell Hattie that day. He waited until evening, until the babies were fed and asleep in the basket Eliza had set by the fire, and he sat down across from the girl at Eliza's kitchen table and he told her the truth. He told her plainly, the way he would have wanted to be told. Hattie listened with her hands folded on the table in front of her. When he was done, she sat very still for a long moment. Then she said, "He meant to come back." "He meant to," Silas agreed. "He was coming back. The river took him on the way." "So nobody, Ma," she stopped. She started again. "So he didn't choose to leave us?" "No, child, he did not." Hattie nodded once. 2 tears went down her face, but she did not sob, and she did not look away. She had carried the other story, the abandonment story, for 6 days, and she set it down now slowly. The way a person sets down something they have been carrying so long they have to remember how their hands work without it. "That's better," she whispered. "That's a better thing to know," Silas thought.
Before we continue the story, I need to speak from the heart for a minute. A lot of people see channels like this and assume we're making thousands of dollars from videos that look simple to put together. But the truth is, they're not simple at all. And honestly, most creators in this niche haven't earned much of anything. Every single story on this channel takes an unbelievable amount of time, effort, and money to create. The writing alone can take weeks, sometimes even months. Then comes the editing, building the visuals, creating the atmosphere, keeping characters consistent, fixing mistakes, reworking scenes over and over, and spending money on tools and software just to make these stories feel cinematic and immersive for you. Most people only see the finished video for a few minutes on their screen. They don't see the countless late nights behind it. They don't see the hours spent rewriting scenes, trying to make every moment feel real instead of rushed. And through all of that, I kept believing YouTube would eventually support the channel once monetization finally kicked in. For almost 5 months, I kept going without making a single dollar. Then, after months of work, the channel finally got monetized. I remember watching the numbers slowly grow in the dashboard and thinking maybe things were finally starting to turn around. Maybe I could finally keep improving these videos without constantly worrying about costs. Then, right before payout, the channel got demonetized, just like that. After all the work, all the hours, all the money spent trying to build something different from the low-effort content flooding YouTube now. And honestly, the hardest part is that people don't always see the effort behind these videos. Some comments call them fake, automated, or low effort, when in reality these stories take more time and care than most content uploaded online today. Truthfully, it's been discouraging, but I still love making these stories. And I know a lot of you genuinely love sitting down at night, relaxing, and getting lost in these worlds with me, especially now when there are barely any channels left making long-form cinematic storytelling like this anymore. And the truth is, this isn't happening to just me. Almost every creator in this space is struggling with monetization right now. A lot of channels you watch and love are dealing with the same thing. So lately, I've been trying to figure out another way to keep these stories alive. That's why the next part of this story has been uploaded on Rumble. And for those who don't know what Rumble is, don't worry. It's just a free video platform, very similar to YouTube. You simply click the link in the pinned comment, and the story will continue right where this video leaves off. I honestly hate asking for support. I really do. I'd rather just make the stories and let them speak for themselves. But if these videos help you relax, help you escape for a little while, or give you something real to look forward to at the end of the day, then please consider supporting the story over there. Watch it there, share it if you can, and if you truly want to help keep this channel alive, there's also an option to tip and directly support the future of these stories. Every bit of support genuinely helps me continue making videos like this, and make them even better. I'm also planning something much bigger for the future, not just regular YouTube uploads, but full cinematic story experiences, longer projects with deeper writing, stronger atmosphere, more consistent characters, better visuals, stories that feel closer to films than ordinary videos. The kind of projects that take real months to create properly, and if I'm able to make that happen, I promise you they'll be worth experiencing. Thank you for being here. And if you're ready for the next part of the story, the link